tutorial, we'll give an overview of the geometric modeling tools available in MassMotion. To start, we'll get a new project going, and in the 3D view, we'll right-click and create a barrier object. Now, barrier objects by default are 1 meter by 1 meter cubes. Press the A key to zoom the extent of all the objects in the scene. And the first thing we're going to do is create the outline of a house, and then we'll create a couple of floors inside that house as a way of demonstrating the geometric modeling tools in the software. These tools are important because even though you will often be bringing your geometry in from another CAD or BIM package, there's every likelihood that at some point you may wish to create your own geometry to augment that imported geometry or to modify the geometry that you've brought in. So to begin with, we'll turn this barrier geometry into something which is a bit more house-sized. So we'll do we'll turn it into a 10 meter by 10 meter by 10 meter cube by setting the scaling to 10 on all 3 axes. And there we have it. And I will turn off the scaling tool by pressing the spacebar and going back to the object select mode. Now, what I'm looking for here is a more traditionally Monopoly style house. So what I'm going to do is go to edge select mode. There, in addition to object and edge, there is also vertex select mode and face select mode. So in edge select mode, I'll hold down the shift key and select all 3 of these edges at the top surface of what's going to be our house. And I will go over here and click on the split selected edges button. And now we can see that it's split right down the middle, those 3 edges, leaving us with this nice clean set of edges right across the top of our object. And I will just press V to enter the translate tool and move it up in the y-axis so that we have a nice peaked house. Okay. Something that's happened here as a result of doing the splitting of the edges is that the geometry here has become perhaps a little more complex than it needs to be. There is a tool for healing that kind of thing, so if you're making modifications to geometry and you find it's getting overly complex, you can click on the Simplify button and it will attempt to resolve it back to the minimum number of triangles required to describe the shape. So the next thing that we're going to do is to give this thickness so that we actually have some thickness to our exterior walls. And the way I'm going to do that is go into face select mode. I'm going to select all of these faces, and just so that it's easier to see this operation happen, I'm going to switch to wireframe mode. Now those faces are still selected, and what I can do now is click on, I'm going to do this in a particular way, I'm going to click on the scale tool so that, and normally what this would do is adjust the size of the overall object, but then I'm going to click on the grow tool down here. And now, when I do that, what it's actually going to do is create copies of all those faces that I'd selected, and by scaling them smaller, what it's actually doing is offsetting all of those faces so that we actually now have a shape which has thickness for our walls. Now I'll switch back to object select mode. You can rotate around and see that all of our edges and faces are in place. And if we switch back to our shaded view, we can see that our object is still solid, and I'm going to adjust the transparency of this object a bit so that we can a little bit more easily see what's going on inside of it. So now I've sort of positioned the camera inside of this object, and what I would like to do next is use a couple of the faces down here on what's going to be our floor to actually create a floor object in MassMotion. So I'll go back to face select mode. I'll select those 2 objects, and what I will do is extract those as a floor. And what that does is it takes those original 2 triangles and literally extracts them. So it deletes them from the source object and then uses them to create a new floor. Now, what I also would like to do is create a second floor for this building. So what I can do now is, what I'm going to do is hide this house outline for a moment. I can right click on the floor and click on duplicate. That can also be accomplished by the shortcut of Control D. And now that I have that object created, I'm just going to move it up so that I actually have a second floor. And if we go over here to the list of all the objects in our scene, we can see that that barrier geometry, the visibility capsule for it is hollow, which means that it's hidden. And so I can click on that, press H, and bring it back, and I can adjust my floor heights like so. I also think that this house is perhaps a little bit tall, so I'm just going to select my overall house outline here, and I'm going to go to vertex select mode. And if you look carefully, you can see that it's not just, I've selected not just the external vertices, but also the internal vertices of this object. And press V to enable my translate tool, and then I can just reduce the height of that building. So now we have our house outline, we have 2 floors, and the next step is to create a stairway which connects these 2 floors. So to do that, I will right click on my lower floor and I will create a stair. And we can see that that stair has been created sort of right above where I had my mouse positioned. I'm going to rotate the stair because I'd like it to line up along this wall. So I press C, or click here on the rotate button, and then I'm going to adjust it around this axis. If I hold down the shift key, it constrains it to 15-degree increments. I press B to go to translate mode so that I can adjust it up against the wall that I would like it to be along. And the floor-to-floor distance here is a bit high, and so what we'll do is we're actually going to use a bit of this stair to create the floor that we need at this level. So what I'm going to do is go to my edge select mode, and the key shortcut for that is E. And now I'm going to press G for grow, and I'm just going to adjust it like so. I'm even going to take a quick look at it here in the top view so that I can get my alignment with the exterior wall sorted out. And now I've pressed Y to go into face select mode, and I'm going to extract this piece as a floor. And I'll just reposition the edge of my stair back here. Actually, what I'm going to do in this case, I'm just going to delete those 2 vertices. I put too many there. Delete those 2 vertices. And now we can see that our goal line has moved back to the appropriate place, and I'm going to just move that into position. And perhaps grow this just a little bit so that we get the right coverage to make that stair happy. There we go. And now I'm going to create another stair here on this landing. So I will create a stair, and I will rotate it, this time 180 degrees, using the shift key to control the increment of rotation. And I'll use my various views to get the alignment of this correct. It looks like this needs to grow just a little bit in the other axis now, so that we've actually got both of our stairs properly accounted for. And there we go. So now we have 2 stairs with a landing and extending all the way up to the 2nd story. This stair isn't quite positioned properly, so I'll select the vertices, constrain it to that plane, and adjust it into position. So that's fine. The staircase looks good, but the problem we have now is that agents that are climbing the stairs will in fact look like they're bumping their heads and then walking through this floor up here, which is not very appropriate. So I'm going to switch over to my top view and maximize it. And this time I'm going to choose the knife tool, and what this will allow me to do is to click and drag and create a couple of slices through this floor geometry that I have selected. And I'll do that around the outline of our upper flight of stairs. And now when I switch back to my perspective view, I can look at this and select these triangles, which are in the way of people ascending or descending the stairs, and delete them. And now we have a set of stairs which agents should be able to move through more or less unencumbered. And one other thing that I would like to do is create an outside to this house so that we can have people moving from the outside to the inside. I'll press Control D to duplicate my ground floor, V for the translate tool, and I will move that outside. That will be something like our exterior yard. I will show the house outline. There it is. I'll hide it again really quick. I will create a portal up here on the 2nd floor. Create another one out here. Rotate it into position. And then we'll need to create a front door in this location. So I right click, create a link, scale that link, and then move it into position such that it actually works as a front door. And I will show my house barrier again, and let's see if we can create just a quick journey here. We'll say over 5 seconds, create 5 agents. They go from this portal to the portal up there. And if we go to analysis and run it, quickly choose a place for it to live. And what did it say was the problem? So, because the traversal type of this link is set to standard, it means that it is going to be looking at the barriers. So we could fix this in one of 2 ways. One would be to set the traversal type to ignore barriers, and that would certainly work. But the other thing that we can do is select our house geometry here, and let's switch this to the left view. Maximize that so that we can see where our door geometry is, which is, these are the goal lines for it here. Turn on the knife tool again. I'm just going to create a few more slices so that we can cut out the geometry of a doorway. Go in here, switch to face select mode, shift click to select all 3 of those, delete them, and then there's also the set on the inside. Shift click to delete those, and there we have a door cut into our house, which is good. And then going back to the exterior of our house, the geometry is a little bit rough looking at this point, so we'll simplify that. And now we have a relatively clean representation of our house, and we can run the simulation. No warnings this time, and we should now see a few people walking into our house, up the stairs, and into the upper floor. So, that concludes the tutorial on MassMotion geometry. Thank you for listening.